Hey guys, Senza here, and welcome to another Shadowlands beta video now. So, beta just launched today, and now we have access to all of the different covenants, soulbinds. Now, a lot of them are actually still, they don't actually work. There's placeholders, but you can still see all of them. You can still put all you can make all your selections, you can put in your conduits. They also made shaman and priest conduits available, though priest is a little off right now. But this is going to be the first video that goes over the different covenants' actual soul binds, not the conduits. So for Night Fae, we have Nia, and the way that the soul binds work is it seems like there's an ideal setup for like specs. So like Nia seems to be ideal for DPS. The Dreamweaver seems to be ideal for healing, maybe tank, and then the Korayn seems good for tank. So it seems that they kind of set it up to be like DPS, healer, tank. But you can do whatever you want, but you'll see when I go over them. So your first choice for Nia is either the Sylvari Mantle. When Soul Shape ends, you're concealed until you move, or Stay on the Move, where defeating an enemy reduces the Soul Shape's cooldown by 1 second. And Soul Shape has a 1.5 minute cooldown, so that one isn't bad. There'll be situations where maybe you do want to go into stealth, especially if it's like a vanish. Then I can definitely see that. I can see that being more useful in like a boss fight, for instance. But for general purpose, I would probably go with Stay on the Move because it allows you, especially in open world content, it allows you to use your soul shape more. And then you have your first conduit, a finesse conduit, and then you get to choose between three of Nia's tools. There's burrs, poison, and herbs. So, burns will cause your damaging attacks and spells to give you a chance to toss spiked burrs on the target, which all it does is it reduces their damage, I mean their movement speed, and then it does damage over 6 seconds. Now, when you see the next ability, so burrs will do that, 1179 nature damage over 6 seconds. This one also involves damage, but it requires you to interrupt. So the poison, whenever you interrupt, it'll apply Nia's paralytic poison, which deals almost twice as much damage, or actually, yeah, about twice as much damage, but it's over 30 seconds. And if you interrupt them again while they still have it on them, while they still have the poison on them, it'll do more damage. But this is only interrupt. So, if you're fighting a boss or something that there's nothing to interrupt, then or just whatever target you're fighting and there's nothing to interrupt, you're not going to be able to apply the poison. Whereas the burrs is going to be, it's going to happen even if you don't interrupt them. So, just keep that in mind. So the other one is herbs, and it makes your helpful spells have a chance to apply invigorating herbs, which increases the target haste by 95 for 20 seconds. So that one is kind of nice. You can get some you know use out of it even if you're not a healer, because well, it depends on your class. But like I'm on my monk, and my monk will probably be uh, Night Fae, so you could get some haste out of it. Uh, Pretty good, but that also can be useful for healers. And just keep in mind that finesse is throughput, whether you're DPS or heal or tank. So just because they're I mean not finesse, I'm sorry. Finesse is utility. Potency is throughput. So even though there's this is the one that has three potency ones, and most likely when you want to go for DPS, the potency things are going to be useful for healer as well. Um, like, let's see here. There's a potency one that makes reduce the cooldown for revival when you use Rising Sun Kick. There's a potency one for Keg Smash dealing additional damage to targets. So just because it may seem like it's DPS oriented, it can still be useful for other specs. And then it's just after you pick these three, it has the potency conduit, and then another potency conduit. Um, if you pick the other one, it's endurance. If you pick this one, it's finesse. So then the next choice is care package, and it makes her periodically send you herbs, and whenever you complete activities. Uh, so the other one is Swift Patrol. Movement speed increased by 20% for 2 minutes after defeating an enemy, but combat will cancel the effect. Both of them are just kind of, they're small things, but this one gives you a potency conduit. Plus, I mean, herbs are going to always be nice, even if you're not a, herbalist, you'll be able to give it to somebody that does. So, yeah, gives you a potency conduit. But if you pick the other one, you get a endurance conduit. And then finally, the last trait, Grove Invigoration. When you use your Night Fae class ability, you gain 10% mastery, slowly fading over 5 minutes. That's pretty nice, especially for the Phalanx Stomp for monks. So if I use this, you see I have 10% mastery now, and it lasts for 2 minutes, and every, I guess, 10 seconds, 15. I'm not sure exactly. But it slowly goes down by 1%. But the good thing about this is even if you have to wait for the full cooldown, it's only gonna go down to like 8% before you can use it again. And the Phalanx Stomp has a chance to reset, so you can stay pretty close to 10% mastery at all times as a Windwalker monk, or just a monk in general that's using um, this tree. So that's kind of nice. Okay, now we're going to move on to the second one, the Dreamweaver. The first one is not a choice, it's just one that you get. When Soul Shape ends, you increase your movement speed of nearby allies by 15% for 15 seconds. And then you get an endurance slot for free. And then you make your first choice, Social Butterfly, which is pretty nice. When at least 2 allies are within 8 yards, your versatility increases by 5% for 5 seconds. When this expires, 2 nearby allies gain this bonus for 5 seconds before passing it back to you. Now that one is good for multiple specs, and especially as a monk. I'm going to be talking more about monk because that's my main, and that's the current class I'm playing. But versatility is good as a DPS monk, but also versatility, can help healing and tanking as well. And being able to give that increase to other people also is useful, but also kind of shows how this is probably more suited for a tank or healing spec. But yeah, the versatility is still useful. Soothing Voice. When your root stuns and incapacitating class effects and your target's movement speed is reduced by 90% and rapidly decaying over 2 seconds. Just a useful, if you need some more slows or CC in general. And then that one will lead to a potency one, whereas the first one will lead to a endurance one. And then the last one, Empowered Chrysalis, 10% of your overhealing received or done remains as a shield on the target, up to 15% of the target's health. So I think this is really nice because it gives you something for if you like overheal, especially as like a druid healer, for instance. You'll be able to give them a shield as well, and it goes into it's a finesse one, but still, um, I think that's pretty good. I also think the other one, Social Butterfly, is pretty good too. So these are all I think meaningful selections because not only are they pretty decent, I feel like the middle one isn't as great unless you really need some slows, but to make up for it, they gave it a potency conduit. So I feel like this is a pretty balanced row and a good example of what the Soulbind system can be. So after you make that selection, then you get a free potency conduit, and then you make your last choice. Either Fairy Dust, which when you fall farther than 20 yards, Fairy Dust slows you. Basically, it just gives you an automatic slow fall. Um, so that could save a life. And then I am not even going to try and pronounce this. Every 1 hour spent in the rest area grants you increased gold from the next world quest you complete, and it stacks up to 5. That's pretty nice, especially for people that are, obviously most people aren't going to be playing 24/7. So even a 5 hour break gives you a nice little boost to your next world quest bonus gold. So yeah. That one will give you an endurance, and this one will give you a finesse. So some of these choices are going to kind of be based on the conduits, and since we don't have all of the conduits available, well, for every class, then it's going to be hard to say. For monk, they are in, but other classes not. And then finally, Pod Tender. When you would take damage that would kill you, it instead rejuvenate within a Wild Seed, regaining 30% of your HP over 10 seconds. If the Wild Seed takes more than 10,000 damage during this time, you die, and it can only occur once every 30 minutes. Now, before I go on, I also wanted to say that you can't see it now, but a lot of these are placeholder. The descriptions are right, but they're not actually in, and they have a different placeholder, just like stamina increase. So even though you select this, it won't actually work right now. But you can kind of plan on how it would work. So we can't actually test Pod Tender out, but this is the one reason why I don't know. Everything else about this tree seems like it would be good for a tank or a healer, but this makes me think that it's going to be better suited for a healer or even a DPS, because if you die and then you rejuvenate as a wild seed, if you're not able to do anything during that wild seed, and especially if you're taking damage, then you'll die. As a tank, you know, one or two things are going to happen. Either A, you're going to have that aggro and you're going to probably take 10,000 damage and then die before that 10 seconds is up, or B, you're a tank, you're not going to take that 10,000 damage because you dropped aggro and now your teammates are dying because they're attacking them instead of you. So if it doesn't say that you can't do anything, it just says that you rejuvenate within a wild seed. So if you can still attack and do all that stuff, um, then it's still going to be rough, I think, as a tank, because it's when you take damage. So I feel like because of this would be better as a healer. Now, sure, if you're a healer, you're not able to heal, your teammates could die, but hopefully you can survive for 10 seconds. And if you're actually able to act as well, and you're not just sitting there for 10 seconds, then I feel like this is amazing as a healer, and this would definitely be the one that I pick as a healer, because it basically gives you a free res every 30 minutes. And as long as you don't take too much die, then you keep it. So that's one I definitely have to test, but yeah, it's interesting. And then finally we get Korayn. Um, Two choices at the very beginning. Horn of the Wild Hunt. Soul Shape increases movement speed of allies within 40 yards by 10%, and that goes into a potency conduit, so probably would end up taking that. The other one is kind of nice too, the Wild Hunt's Charge, which while out of combat, the teleport becomes a charge and stuns the target for 2 seconds and ends your Soul Shape. So, and also gives you a finesse conduit. And then a free endurance conduit, and now we have three more choices. Face your foes. When in front of your target, your spells and abilities decrease the damage they inflict on you by 2%. So this row right here makes me think that I would pick tank for this one, because this one is just nice. One, as a tank, you're probably going to be in front of your target almost every time unless you're off tanking, and it just gives you a free like 2% damage decrease, damage reduction. So yeah. And then the other one, damaging an enemy before they damage you increases your crit strike by 10%. This is definitely more suited for, most suited for healers, but also it can be, or DPS I meant, but it can be useful for everybody else too, as long as you initiate combat. Uh, yeah, if your class wants crit, then that's a pretty decent one. And then hold the line. After 5 seconds of standing still, you take 10% less physical damage until you move. I feel like this is another one that's like, it can be useful as a tank, um, because taking 10% less damage as long as you don't have to move is definitely going to be useful. Definitely seems like a tank-oriented one, but I also think that would be useful for a healer too, because a lot of healers, or casters aren't going to be taking that much, or not going to be moving that much, but you also may not really need that damage reduction. So I think these are two pretty decent tank ones, where this one is useful for other stuff, but especially this one. And it goes into a potency one, so it seems like a no-brainer to me. And then a finesse one, and then the last choice, the Vorkai sharpening techniques, where your weapon takes no durability damage. They have a lot of things to do with durability in these covenants, so I think it's kind of cool. And then get information where your mounted movement speed is increased by 3%, and then allies behind you within 40 yards gain the benefit. So just because the theme of this stuff, it definitely seems more like a tank one, in my opinion. You got face your foes where you're in the front, you're taking less damage, or you're holding the line, and you're getting to formations where you're in the lead, and the tank usually takes that leading spot. So I feel like this would definitely be the tank one, in my opinion. And then the last one, final movement, final moments. Your healing and damage to targets below 35% is increased by 3%, and when an ally dies, it is increased by 500%. Now this one here also would be decent as a DPS, and I really like this covenant and the soulbinds here because they seemed decently balanced, in my opinion. Because at least between like different specs, because this soulbind seems more suited for like tanking, but there's things in here that's useful. Like this one's useful for healing and DPS as well. You get a 3% increase to your damage when the target is below 35%, and also if somebody dies, that's increased by 500%. So that's a pretty strong boost to both healing and damage. But even as a tank, like imagine like a blood DK for instance, you can have your damage and healing, self healing increased by a lot. So yeah, I really like these soul bonds, and this was the last one that I actually looked at. It's the first video I'm doing, but it was the last soul bind that I looked at, and I wasn't sure how it would be. I was really hoping it was going to be pretty good because I looked at um, Kyrian, that'll be the next video I do, and it seemed really nice. At least the DPS one, or the DPS oriented one, I should say. Seemed really good for monks, but yeah, the Phalanx Stomp was my favorite ability, and these soul binds seemed really good. It seems pretty balanced, so I think that pretty much cements the fact that I'm going to be Night Fae for my monk, and I really like these soul binds. Definitely want to try out some of these different things. But that's all for this video on the Night Phase Soulbinds. If you liked the video, please give a like and subscribe for future videos. And as always, thanks for watching.